Unit 2, Support for Probability. This is section 2.1, Introduce Counting and Simple Probabilities. In this section, we're introducing some definitions. So we have experiment. An experiment is an action that gives specific results, such as counts, measurements, or responses. I want to pay special attention to the word action, right? You're actually physically doing something. The next one is outcome. It is the possible results of an experiment. So let's take a look already here. The experiment is flipping a coin. So we just saw this word experiment. And we said it was an action. So what's the action? So here's the experiment and here's the action. You're actually flipping a coin. What could be the outcomes? The outcomes could be a heads or a tails whenever you're flipping a coin. And then a little later in the section, we're going to see some probability. So we see probability is the chance that a specific event will occur. You probably use probability every day in your life. It's the chance. We're going to look at those. Over here, I should have said results, possible results. And a tree diagram. This is one of the things we'll be using in this section the most. A tree diagram is a picture for the results. It's the way it helps us picture, it helps us put our thoughts together. It's quite important because sometimes there's a lot of options and you want to be able to put them all on your paper so you don't miss anything. So let's take a look at our first example. It's one of the most common examples, and so in this section we took extra care to write the usual things for you. So the usual thing for an experiment is to flip a coin. So this is the question you'll see, or the prompt you'll see. It'll say a coin is tossed once. And nobody really tells you this part here. This part you kind of gather on your own. So this is what you get. This is what you get. And then this is your thoughts. This is what should come to mind. Okay, so a coin is tossed once, and you're thinking, okay, the experiment is we're flipping a coin. And then I can draw a tree diagram. A tree diagram starts at a point. This is not an answer, okay? This is just where I'm starting off. These are called branches, right? That's why it's a tree diagram. We're going to branch out every time I have an option or a possible outcome. So I know that here's my, here's me holding my coin in my hand, right? So here's my little coin, and I'm going to toss it, and I could possibly get a head, or I could possibly get a tail. So again, the overall picture is called a tree diagram. The little sticks, these guys here are called branches, and then these are your possible outcomes, right? And I have them listed for you with a picture and all. So the list of all outcomes, this is a common question, list all the outcomes. And so you would say the list of all outcomes is heads and tails. And in a little bit, we'll cover this again, but the probability of flipping a coin and it landing on heads is 0.5 or 1/2. So the most important take-home message in this little square is this part here. All right, so let's try some of our own. It says you toss a coin twice. What is the experiment? The experiment is flipping a coin. Twice. Let's go ahead and draw a tree diagram. The starting point is just where I'm going to start branching out. If you don't have a starting point and you just start drawing branches, that's okay as well, okay? I tend to, think of myself, here's me, and here's my little coin in my hand, right? And we're going to toss it. And so when I toss it, what's the first thing that can happen? I can get heads, or I can get tails. right? I'm going to grab this coin. So let's say I tossed it and I got heads, right? I'm right here. And then I'm going to toss that same coin again because we're tossing this coin twice. So I'm going to toss this coin. So if I toss it, this is the coin. I'm going to toss it. What can happen? It can be a heads or it can be tails. So you see this tree diagram has grown in size, right? Because we're going to do this twice. We were tossing the coin twice. Okay, let's say that the first time that I had tossed it, I was at tails. So here I am. And I grab my coin again and I'm ready to toss. So here's heads and here's tails. So in a sense, I can label this is the first toss. And this right here is the second toss. Right, so you kind of see in the first toss, I could toss heads or tails. In the second toss, I can also toss heads or tails. All right. A tree diagram is essential. It helps you picture the outcomes, and the outcomes is actually the really important part. So the tree diagram helps us picture so that we can put all of our outcomes together. So what are our outcomes? Our outcomes follows a branch. Okay, so let's draw it like this. An outcome is all the way to the end. So from here to here. An outcome would be heads, heads. And I'm going to be short and I'm just going to say HH. Another outcome could be it starts here, heads, and then goes to tails. So this is heads, tails. So heads, heads is one outcome, heads, tails, and is another outcome. Let's take a look at this one. If I had tossed tails the first time, tails, heads is one outcome. And then tails, tails is another outcome. Usually you'll see squiggly brackets like this. This is a set. It kind of just keeps all your answers together. If you're not one to kind of look at that at this map and you know want to draw all over it the way that I just did, and I'm erasing it because it kind of gets in the way, you can also look at and count the little branches at the end. So this is one outcome, so you can follow it all the way, heads, heads. And then this is a second outcome, heads, tails. Third outcome, tails, heads. And fourth outcome, tails, tails. So you can count these as well. You don't just have to follow the map. You can do it several different ways. And that is our first experiment.